And to some extreme examples, I have seen a building filled with 90% of the buyers from one origin. Hey guys, Jerry Wang here. So I have a little bit of time before my next showing in this unit, and I've been talking to a few prospective buyers that have reached out to me asking me about different buildings, and it really kind of made me want to record this really quick hot take about what's going on in New York City real estate and why I think it's a kind of a bad trend that's been going on. So first of all, this could give me into a little bit of trouble talking about this video, but I just want to clarify that I'm 100% in support of fair housing laws and rules that are, federal and New York City laws, and I think they're very good in terms of protecting people. However, this trend seems to be going the opposite direction, and in my opinion, it's just not very good for buyers in general and future sellers. So what's been going on is that New York City, obviously Manhattan, has been one of the best locations in real estate, one of the prime locations, if not the most prime location in the world. Actually, it's a global market. We have a lot of international audiences and clientele. However, Manhattan is not all rosy per se in terms of locations. For instance, there are less desirable locations. For instance, like places that are very close to the tunnel entrances and exits, bridges, and also potentially a lot of different quote-unquote red flags or locations that are not good for future appreciations. But what I'm seeing nowadays is that you have sponsors building in very undesirable locations, and then they know that the local buyers are not going to buy it because they know the locations, they know the area. So what they do is they just design the building, put it up, and then with the intention to just completely go international. And they package it so well. It's just, the international buyers are not going to understand the nuances in different locations and the pros and cons and the advantages and disadvantages of different locations. And it essentially puts them into a kind of trap them into these buildings. And to some extreme examples, I have seen a building filled with 90% of the buyers from one origin. And that's just insane. And I guess, you can't really blame the sponsor for being very successful in marketing these kind of buildings internationally, but at the same time, it's kind of not right for the consumers, not right for the buyers, because you have these buyers who are all buying into the same building, and it's not desirable locations, bear in mind. And New York City real estate market, especially like Manhattan, it's still 60-70% local buyers, 30-40% of internationals. And what that means is that all these future homeowners are not going to be able to sell it to local market because these locations have been less desirable for a very long time, and now they bought into these overpriced, quote-unquote overpriced units. And if by the time they want to sell, they're going to take a hit. And you can't really blame the sponsors, the developers for doing it, but at the same time, I feel bad for some of the buyers. So there are some buildings that a lot of prospective buyers or clients have asked me before, oh, I saw this ad here, when they're still outside of the US. I'm gonna try to be more discreet because I don't want to get in trouble for pointing out which buildings or where the buyers are from. But you have a bunch of people from overseas, and they're all seeing the same advertisements from the same sponsors. And interestingly enough, no one local ever asked me about these buildings because everyone knows. And then you get trapped. Some of these buyers actually don't buy from me, and then ultimately and that's perfectly fine. But they come to me afterwards asking about how come their units are not selling, or how come the sponsor or the developer lowered the prices by 20-30%. And it's a really bad trend in my opinion. And I wish the buyers could be more educated, but at the same time, it's not really a scam. The sponsors made a product that is widely accepted by international buyers, and the international buyers bought it, and I just feel bad because it's a long-term investment and it's a lot of money. But we all know, like knowing deep down that it's not going to do well. The building is not going to do well. And some people may argue, oh well, just because like right now it's not doing well, but 20 years later it's going to change. But Manhattan's been around for over 100 years. What makes you think that like next 20 years it's going to be any different? There are locations that are super prime and priced super high, but they're priced super high for a reason. Why do you think this location right now is cheap and it will change so quickly in the next 5, 10, 20 years? Just doesn't make sense. Anyway, it's just a quick kind of a hot take about what's going on, what I've been seeing. In my opinion, when you're choosing to buy, you should still think about what your way of life is. I see some people buying buying a building, buying an apartment right next to a bridge, and you get all kinds of traffic going on, and then you're about 1 mile, 2 miles away from the subway stations. So you're in the middle of nowhere, and the neighborhood is just not developed. There's no nice restaurants. There's nothing around there that you can actually go to. There's no supermarket, and you're in the middle of nowhere. You're literally in the middle of nowhere, and you get stuck with a building. You get stuck with an apartment. You get maybe gorgeous views and really nice amenities, but what else do you get? And then by the time you try to sell, you're not gonna move it. And then in some extreme examples, I'm seeing some, like I saw some a building with a 30%, 25% discount, and then for people who are investing, it's just like also the sponsor is renting out their own units that didn't sell, and then so you're competing with a lot of portfolio, with a lot of inventory, and then you're also the fact that it's not that desirable to begin with, and then it's just everything is just working against you. So yeah, I mean, I guess it's just a shout out to all the international buyers. Be wary of those things, like not everything they say is real and not everything they say is true. You have to still think about the local market. It's not just the best view, the best amenities. It's a balance of everything. You gotta consider the distance to the subway stations, the neighborhood, the area. So yeah, it's just, I mean, I don't want to keep rambling on, but that's the trend I've been seeing over the last 5 years or so, where the international market really boomed. And what we are seeing, it's a little bit over 5 years ago. It's over the last 8 years ago. Over the last 8 years, it's been going on. About 2014, 2015, market really picked up in terms of international presence. And these developers, sponsors really found a way to kind of tap into those markets. And there's nothing wrong with investing in New York City real estate. I want to put it out there. It's a really safe investment when you make the right choices, but you have to think about the location. Location is everything. You can buy into a cheaper, like a more affordable location, but you want to have some future growth. You don't want to buy into a location where there's really nothing going on. And there are things that will work against you in New York City. And without going into details, because I really don't want to get in trouble for this, without going into details, there's a lot of things that you need to avoid when you're buying in Manhattan or even just New York City as a whole. And you want to buy from someone who has a lot of local knowledge, who has a lot of perspective on what the local market wants, because in the future when you're selling, you're gonna have to face that 60 to 70% local buyers and the 30 to 40% international buyers. You're gonna be facing, you're gonna need to maximize your demand. And when you're renting it out as well, you can't just bank on the fact that, okay, I'm gonna rent it out to someone who is gonna think the way I do. Especially if you're international, everything is based on hypothesis. So again, hopefully, I really hope that the buyers make good decisions when it comes to making these, it's a large sum investment, and these things do matter. There's a lot of things to think about, and location is number one. And just don't get easily tricked by what you see on advertisements, because they're gonna do everything to try to sell you. Really work with someone who is trustworthy in a way. So that's that. I think my appointment's coming up soon, so I'll talk to you later and have a good one. Bye bye.